Thanks everyone. Just a quick intro before I start. So we're all here together. We're all going to talk individually. We are all state-based ombudsman services, but we do a lot of work together. So we do work together in policy submissions to drive the change, the topic of today. We share our positions, we share our values, to ensure alignment of consumer protections across our jurisdictions, and also importantly ensure that equal access to ombudsman services. So what I'm going to share with you today is a brief snapshot of our recent expansion to deal with complaints from landholders and community members impacted by the renewable energy infrastructure development in regional New South Wales. So these regional communities, they are at the front line of the energy transition that we've heard so much about today, and until now they have been navigating a maze of government departments and agencies, leaving many feeling stressed, frustrated and left out of the decision making. So now they have access to the Energy and Water Ombudsman New South Wales. So we're the first ombudsman to take on this role, to offer a dedicated service for independent advice and assistance. We've got over 25 years of dispute resolution experience, and we are the trusted voice and can help build trust in the transition. There's still work to be done in our jurisdiction. We're continuing to work with New South Wales Government to expand further into dealing with complaints about large-scale generation and storage developers. That's a bit more difficult. There isn't a clear regulatory mechanism for that important consumer protection of the right to access the Ombudsman in the current planning frameworks, but we're still working through options in New South Wales with a clear mandate to ensure equal access for all community members impacted by the infrastructure development in the energy transition. So it was 2 years ago that we started working with, kept the slides very simple. So it was 2 years ago that we started working with the New South Wales Government when the New South Wales Government first approached E1 to take on this new role. And it's really been a whirlwind of work to get to where we are today. So internally we set up a small team to drive the new jurisdiction forward. We began an extensive stakeholder and community engagement program crisscrossing the state, which you can see a lot on the map there of New South Wales. We travelled over 18,000 kilometres. We've met with councils, MPs, community groups. We've made policy submissions. We've presented to New South Wales Parliament. We've resolved complaints. We've done a lot of things in that time. I should have put on this slide a QR code. We've just released an impact report actually, and I'm really disappointed I didn't put a link or anything on this slide. I could have watched you all take your phones out and take that validation of taking your phones out and taking a photo. But we've just released an impact report on what we have achieved over the last 2 years, and so if you're interested, you'll have to use the old-fashioned method of Googling it and looking it up. So the map here tells a real story about where we have been across New South Wales in this new jurisdiction. And it's really this graph here, though, that tells the reality of a real lack of awareness in New South Wales of consumer protections available to regional communities, particularly their right to access the Ombudsman service. The graph tells the story that the complaints that we receive are only from areas where we've been. And so it's those regional communities where we front up and we're at an agricultural show or at a market or we're meeting with council, whatever it is, they're the ones that know that we exist and can lodge complaints about us. But we're a small team and we can't be everywhere. So consumer protections, really, they best serve those who know about them. So what we really need industry to better promote consumer protections, complaint handling, and the right to access the Ombudsman service. Government needs to enshrine this in regulations. passive awareness raising information on websites and in newsletters and things like that is really good, is a good starting point, I should say. It's not really good, it's a good starting point. But what's really needed is active promotion. You know, in the initial contact with landholders, in the ongoing discussions with community members, in direct communication on the phone or in person, that's what builds that connection, that confidence, and that buzzword that we've heard so much today, trust. And really, that's what we need in the energy transition. Making that connection, starting in that opening statement of, if something goes wrong, if you've got a complaint, here's our policy, here's what we'll do. And you know what? You've got the right to go to the Ombudsman if you're not happy, or at any time. That is the first step to build that confidence. That confidence then builds that connection. It's that ongoing connection, which then will morph into the trust that we've heard so much about today. I think I heard Brendan say in his opening too, you know, you talked, I think, about pride in the transition. And I've travelled a lot through regional New South Wales in the last year and a half. And I think that that's really what we need in the transition. You know, you need regional communities, they need to have that pride in the development that they're facing, that's already started, that's going on. They can turn around, they want that pride as to say, well, I helped build that. Or my mum or my dad helped build that. You know, and if we can get to that level of pride, trust in the transition, that'll be a real sense of achievement. That's mine. That's it, thank you. I'll hand over now to Catherine. The big green one. Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, Steph. Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today about the work that EWOV, Energy and Water Ombudsman Victoria, is doing to drive change in relation to the transition in particular. For those who don't know, EWOV is a free independent dispute resolution service that helps Victorian consumers and businesses bring complaints and resolve complaints with energy and water companies, and like E1, increasingly too, between landholders and transmission providers. We're an industry-based body funded on a polluter pays basis, whereby those who generate the most dissatisfaction in the market will pay the costs of resolving it through levies and case fees. And so what I wanted to talk to you today is kind of about our theory of change. And apologies that my slide's a little bit busy, but then I remembered there's so many PhDs in this room that you'll all love a text-heavy slide. And it shows the relationships between what we do, the changes we see, and the impact we have to help us achieve our vision of fair, accessible, sustainable markets that meet people's energy and water needs. First thing, we handle individual complaints that are brought by consumers, and I'm sure those of you who know what an ombudsman is, that's the first thing your mind will go to. And this financial year, we expect to receive just over 25,000 complaints. That's 25,000 quite cranky people in Victoria who'll make their way to us. And I think we'd all acknowledge that likely represents a much larger community of silent sufferers, all of whom have had their trust and confidence in energy and water sorely tested. And when they come to us, we provide them with a free and accessible forum for an independent body to consider the facts, evidence and individual circumstances of their case, to identify the issues in dispute, and then consider them in light of applicable law, regulation, good practice, commitments and wider community expectations of what is fair and reasonable. And we can recommend redress where appropriate. And if necessary, a complaint can come all the way to me for a decision that would be binding on the provider. So for a consumer, there's an outcome. For industry, our casework allows providers to resolve issues before they become widespread and provides clarity about what we consider to be fair and reasonable treatment of consumers. That work also puts us in a unique position to see consumers' experiences across energy and water in real time and derive valuable intelligence about how markets are operating and consumers' experiences and outcomes within them. We analyse the data and draw insights from all those complaints to better understand what's going on, to identify systemic issues and recommend change, and where appropriate, make referrals to the regulator. We also use our relationships with our members to engage with them early on to let them know about the problems we're seeing, the extent to which they may be an outlier, and what they can do to put things right at a systems level.
This drives wider practice change and improvements, leading to more consistent outcomes for consumers of a business, even those who don't bring a complaint to EWOV. So we work hard to get the right outcome for people who do come to us and to restore trust and confidence for them, but we work just as hard for those who don't make their way to us but probably need us even more. Our work in this space has driven improved family violence protection practice and prevention practices, has ensured more consumers get the hardship assistance they need, and has restrained unfair back billing, to name a few. And on this point, I do have, hot off the press, copies of our new Systemic Issues report for 2025, which highlights our impact in this space. Please get your limited edition hard copy from Karen or myself in the break, especially because we don't want to have to take them back to Melbourne. Thanks very much. The report sets out where and how we've driven change in energy and water over the past 18 months and lessons and guidance from our work to support better practice by industry. We also use these insights to engage with regulators and policymakers, bringing them timely, consumer-centred evidence base to improve their understanding of the market and build the case for reform. And this work contributes to reforms to evolve the regulatory framework as markets change. And I'll just speak quickly on how we've done this in relation to CER. So, as we've heard throughout today, obviously CER, consumers are being encouraged to engage more and in different ways with CER, but we're seeing that uptake inconsistent across different parts of the community. And I thought I'd just use one systemic issue that we worked on to highlight our work in this space. So in 2024-2025, consumers came to us in numbers to complain about issues they were having with solar export credits, with some not receiving credits for several years or expressing dissatisfaction about delays in connection of their solar panels. They were telling us that the distributor was saying that it was an installer error, that meters hadn't been properly configured. We investigated the complaints, and where we could identify an error or omission by a member of the scheme, whether that was a distributor and or a retailer, we could apply appropriate redress. Where the installers were at fault, unfortunately, we were a bit more limited because at the moment they're not required to be members of EWOV. Then we looked into the complaints and could see the common theme around the relationship between the issues consumers were having and the emergency backstop, the mechanism to control exports to preserve grid stability. We engaged with our distribution company members to hear from them what they thought was driving those increases. They confirmed they were experiencing issues setting up their emergency backstop processes. We worked with them to help them develop better processes and particularly better communication with customers so that they could engage more effectively and in a more timely way to prevent further complaints from arising. We also then shared our insights about these problems and others we were seeing in relation to CER to highlight the need for effective consumer protections in relation to CER products and services, including an end-to-end jurisdiction for EWOV, so we can actually deal with all the problems that we see in relation to CER matters. And we've been very pleased to see, as a result of this work, more focus on CER consumer protections, including access to trusted and independent redress, such as membership of and access to EWOV. So while there's further change needed to deliver on these commitments to evolve the consumer protection framework, it highlights how our work drives a range of changes that contribute to fairer and more fit-for-purpose energy and water markets. We're doing similar work in the transmission and VPP spaces where, as we've heard today, there is further challenges in relation to trust and confidence. And I'll pass over to Jane now to talk about her work, but please do come and see me in the break, get your copy of our report and ask me any questions you'd like about EWOV's work across any of our domains. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk just a bit broader and a little bit differently, not difficulty, but maybe when they get my report, they may think I'm difficult. So what I'm going to talk about today is we're doing some work in my scheme about the Queensland Home Energy Emergency Assistance Scheme. It is a scheme that is available to all consumers in Queensland if you are residential and if you are not in a card-operated meter area, and maybe not everyone in embedded networks can get access to this scheme as well. That's not that they're not entitled to it, it's just that there may be a party who's not actively assisting to enable that person to access that scheme. So one of the areas that we're looking at now is how do we improve this? How do we make this more equitable and just for all consumers in Queensland? And also, when I've been speaking to the industry and those who work with my scheme is it's very awkward and complex for the energy providers because they actually have to, the retailers actually have to work with the consumer to actually get access to the system and provide the information for the government to release the funds. So we really wanted to look at how can we fix it from all aspects. But my other question was, after having the $1,000 rebate, which Queensland had not last financial year, but the previous financial year, what did we learn? What were the complaints coming through to my scheme about that? What didn't work well? And I had an embedded network operator who said to me, that's not my job to get the $20,000 worth of rebate out of the Queensland government. That doesn't help me, I haven't got time to do it. But it was 20 customers he had who were eligible for that rebate that would have made their lives substantially different for that period of time. So, being the generous type of person that I am, I offered to send some of my people down to help him fill out the forms. The next morning he rang me and said, thanks for your offer, but my wife and I filled the forms out last night. Interesting conversation. But yeah, so what we were looking at too and looking at is what does the future for this scheme look like? What should it look like? What do we think might be the issues going forward? And Craig, unfortunately, the Townsville consumer that had the $4,000 bill, they're a pretty normal average consumer in Townsville. That's the size of some of their bills. And that on top of insurance for a vehicle averages about $5,000 a year. And the house insurance and contents insurance is pretty well unaffordable. So for where they live and the natural disasters, most consumers up there don't have that kind of insurance. So we're really looking at this. So it's only worth, well, sorry, I shouldn't say it's only, it's been $720 for 2 years. That's the entitlement. When you're looking at communities where an average bill is $1,000 a month, that's 1 month that they may get, and they can only average entitlement is 2 years. So it's not enough. It's not going to assist. It's no longer fit for the purpose it was actually designed. So we're doing a lot of work now. I'm about to run some workshops with consumer groups and with the energy market to ensure that we're getting to hear all that we need to and making proposals of changes to the Queensland government. And then I will present the report to them and we will start the conversation from there. I'm really happy if anyone in the room may have any thoughts or ideas or may have worked with Queensland consumers, and also really looking at pushing this out through the small business network as well, because there are a lot of assistance needed in that part. We want to make sure that they're able to access this as well. So that's what we're working on right now, and while it's a little bit involved with CER, it's the big part of the big picture for what the future is going to look like in this program. So thanks very much, everyone.